right. So, apart from the Christian worldview, let's look at the problem with the evidentialism. When people say evidences are important, right? Autonomous evidences. What are the problems we find? Number one, apart from Christian worldview, evidences points not to the truth of Scripture. None of the evidences will point a person to the Bible, to the truth of the Bible. It all will lead into some kind of a probability, or it says maybe a lie or a misunderstanding or whatever. So like the God of the gaps theory, they would say, I don't understand this scientifically, so I appeal to a God, or appeal to God. Any people come up with argument for the existence of God have always will come to a conclusion that they would say evidences points to the existence of God, but they will never be able to prove what kind of God is this, right? Before I enter there, I wanted to maybe talk to you a little bit about Thomas Aquinas. Remember Thomas Aquinas? Thomas Aquinas was a Roman Catholic theologian. He came up with the, all right, I think he has got, yes, right here, his pictures. I think you can see the screen. He was known as, his theology is known as Summa theology. Basically, he came with this 5 ways, or Unique via, that is a Latin term they use. 5 logical arguments for the existence of God, right? He was summarized by 13th century Catholic philosopher and a theologian, Thomas Aquinas, and his book is known as Summa Theologica, right? What are the 5 arguments? The argument from first mover, right? If you look at, there are 5 arguments. Arguments from first mover, argument from universal causation, the argument from contingency, argument from degree, the argument from final cause or ends, which is the teleological argument. So if you have not read Thomas Aquinas, these 5 ways of proving God, the existence of God, please, you go and spend some time, read what he says, right? This is very famous in the world, right? That he argues. So he says that we don't need the Bible to talk about God. By using these 5 arguments, these arguments are enough to tell the existence of God. And that was the basic premise of Catholic theology, that, remember, they never taught the Bible in a time, and they never allowed people to even read the Bible. But then what happened after some time, they allowed. It is because they had this, they were influenced by this Thomas Aquinas theology, that we don't actually need Bible to talk about God. And so please try to find some time and read Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways, right? There are a lot of information in the internet that will actually helps us to understand what is this 5 ways. So I am saying here, by looking at all these evidences, people make the arguments of the existence of God. But, okay, what is the problem? These evidences will not or never point to the truth of the Scripture. Not really. Not going to do that. Rather, it is going to point to some kind of probability, right? Second issue, empirical observation, intrinsically theory-laden. What is empirical observation? Empirical, like proven, like with experiences and experiments. People try to prove, right? How long this universe, the age of the earth, they use empirical observation. But what we have to understand, all these observations are theory-laden. There are no brute facts. What is brute facts? Brute fact is a fact that that cannot be explained with anything else, right? That's what brute fact. That's the basic concept. That you don't. That is the foundational concept. So empirical evidences are not brute facts, right? They all what scientists and philosophers are saying are biased. Are biased. That means we are biased, are we not? We are biased. In what way we are biased? We interpret everything that we see with the lens of the scripture, right? A Christian worldview. And I'm saying all those scientists, every philosophers are also biased. They have their own lenses. They have their own theories, which make them to explain. That's the problem. Third, empirical study in itself has certain preconditions that cannot be intelligibly accounted for apart from the Christian worldview. So any studies that come out, they have certain preconditions, right? And for those that the idea is here is that it all can be true if certain conditions are met. Interestingly, you have Darwinian understanding of the origin of man. Man came out of monkey, right? Well, it is, you know that this is the basic assumption. If some of the conditions that are given there are met, and they believe that they are met. Same thing. Fourth one, what is assumed by consistently pagan worldview contradicts not only biblical teaching, but even makes philosophizing impossible. If pure empiricism, that is experimenting or trying to prove theories by experiments or experiences, if a pure empiricism is assumed, right, then we need to understand man's mind is tabula rasa. That's a Latin term, like a blank state. You know, blank state. Blank slate. It's a kind of tabula rasa in a universe of contingencies and particulars and no universals. That means if we believe, if we assume, right, all right, what is assumed by consistently pagan worldview contradicts not only biblical teaching, even talking about these things. If we assume that pagan worldview, it's actually against talking about certain issues. For example, they believe that we are neutral. This tabula rasa, the idea that all these atheists use that term because they want to say human beings be, basically neutral. We got a neutral mind. That is, we have a blank state, neutral mind. That is what they come up and they say that's the way we should be. Remember, here is one thing that I recently noticed, that some of the left-leaning sources were trying to tell that you should grow your children religious means without any religion. You should never talk about religion, because when you talk about Christianity, your children become Christians. When you talk about Hinduism, so that means you are biased. When you train your children in Hinduism, then that child will be a Hindu. If you train your child with Islam, so that means these children are born neutral, but you fill their mind with your religion, right? Religion, and then they become that religious person, right? But so what they say, we need to have a neutral mind, or we need to train our children in a neutral way, and when they grow old, let them decide what they want. But what is the neutral mind that they are talking about? If you really think about it, what is the neutral mind? The neutral mind don't talk about God, or the idea is there is no God, right? That is the neutral mind that people are talking about. There is no God at all. So that you train your children in an atheistic way, without God, so that they will be neutral in all that. Now, I am saying, even if you train your children neutrally, that is not neutral at all. That is also one word leaning. That means that is another religion. We are propagating atheistic religion. So I wanted to say here, there is no neutral mind. If the unbeliever's presuppositionalism goes unchallenged, and if he holds to them tenaciously, he can rightly refuse to budge on the basis of his own worldview alone, right? So you have to challenge unbelievers' presuppositionalism. Sixth one, honesty requires that evidences produce more probability. That's all it does. Remember I said 5 ways of Aquinas. All what it did was, he said, probably there is God. That's all. It never led from probability to certainty. Never. None of the argument led to certainty. All right, so these are the problem with the evidentialism. Evidence never leads a person to certainty. Please get that in your mind. It never leads you to certainty.